okay, what do we have with Ohm? Like, why is Ohm not really capturing much adoption anymore? I believe the reason is there is no freaking use of Ohm's liquidity. So Ohm has $187 million worth of liquidity in the treasury. That's real. That's really backed. And I imagine that that's the composition of this liquidity. So USDS, which is DAI here for 126 million. Then USDE, that's 30 million. And then LP positions that used to be significant. Now it's only 17 million. Then we have some SUSDS and some others. So, so it's 187 mil. That's the composition. As you can see, most of it is DAI. Good thing there's not much Circle, but Circle is back in DAI. So we can say that, significant portion of Olympus is also Circle, which is very questionable what's going to happen to it. We also see that LP positions are only 16 million, which is less than 10%. And even if Olympus holds 90%, right, 90% of its POL, of its protocol-owned liquidity, the question still resembles to how much DEX fees will such LP position generate when it's only 16 million? Now, why is it only 16 million? Why did it drop? Because it was a lot more. How to check that? So here we have Olympus all-time highs. It's probably difficult to see, right? But for the market caps, we could argue that the market cap was extremely close to the backing. So if it was here, the market cap was 2 billion. Again, that's, as we know, it's slightly incorrect data. CoinGecko would have shown 4 billion. So it's 2 billion right there. So the backing was about like 1 billion. Obviously at inflated prices. Given the fact that the price is inflated, therefore the backing was also inflated because backing contains the LP positions. LP positions, half of that is the token itself. So if the price of the token is inflated, the LP position valuation is also inflated despite division by the square root of K. Still very much inflated. And but it was probably like $1 billion or something at the highs as far as the overall backing. So therefore the POL position, the LP position was at $1 billion. How come today we only see this at 16 mil? They couldn't find, my explanation is they could not find the utility for liquidity. They captured liquidity masterfully, amazingly, like better than any other protocol. But then what do you do with it? How do you earn money from it? And you can say, well, the answer is DEX fees. Okay, cool. But DEX fees will only originate if users trade in from ETH to Ohm, to OHM, and then from OHM back to ETH. So that such trade needs to be incentivized. Why would users be trading it? Because if users do not trade OHM into ETH and ETH back into OHM, there are no DEX fees. So therefore, you can control your liquidity all you want. You can have 90%, 100% of your POL, but you're not going to be generating DEX fees. So therefore, your backend is not going to increase. And then they have no bonding either. So they have two major sources of increase of the backend. The first one was bonds. Second one is POL, DEX fees. Third one was restaking. So now all they do is, I assume they're restaking it. But the interest rates on these restakings is nothing. It's below what we have on market rate. So imagine you can take fiat dollars and buy treasuries with it. And currently the T-bills will be at 3.6% if Fed does not cut. That's 3.6% per year. And that's guaranteed. That's treasuries. That's taxable events, but I don't think you pay state taxes, right? If you're outside of the US, I don't even think you even pay any taxes if you buy those treasuries. So it's amazing. 3.6% APY. How much USDS cooler loans would pay? Probably less than 3%. So you have risk of USDS, which is risk of Circle, risk of DAI. Well, first of all, you have risk of Circle, then you have risk of DAI. Then you're not earning more than 3%. So you are diluting in value. Yet your risk is insane. Right? So like if I have two, like on the scale, like on the right scale, I have, fiat currencies and 3.6% guaranteed. On the other scale, I have, insane smart contract risk, stablecoin issuer risk from Circle, and my yield is lower. Why would I buy it? Like, there's no use in this anymore. They just fucked it up. Like, and the reason why they did it is they had an amazing idea to attract liquidity, but I don't think they thought through how to utilize that liquidity down the road. The liquidity conversation, if you missed it, please rewatch last week's video about it. That's very important. Okay. So, one second. Now, how is Ghost different, right? So Ghost is different from Olympus. How we are improving the Olympus model. We are taking into consideration the utility of liquidity, as we mentioned on last call, through cross-chain transactions. So we are renting, so we acquire the liquidity by selling bonds, and then we're renting that liquidity to bridgers. And such loans are super short term, right? You loan it for whatever, like for 15 minutes essentially. On one chain, then you essentially, and then you redeem it back 15 minutes later on another chain. So I'm not talking right now about people who would lock the eCasper, who would lock the eCasper into the Ghost chain. I'm talking about just bridgers. Like you just bridge in and bridge through, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And for that, such rental is actually quite monetarily profitable, because you are like, as long as we have adoption, and we could have adoption because we're the first decentralized bridge, users would have to go and they would have to rent the liquidity. They have no other option but to rent the liquidity. So if you want to bridge, you must rent liquidity from us, and you pay a fee for such rental to the validators and also to the Ghost cult, which is council members and whales and upcoming users, right? So it all goes back to the system, which gets split up in a decentralized way. So that is the difference between us, because we just found this lost final destination for what we could do with such liquidity. But then we go further. We say, okay, fine. We could be a non-pegged stablecoin, and perhaps we could be a better non-pegged stablecoin than any other, attempt so far. Better than Rye, because Rye was again unpredictable, and better than Olympus, because Olympus was very predictable from that perspective, but it was not. It was predictable from perspective of the the price anchoring. Like the price is kind of supposed to increase because the DEX fees in the interim would at least increase the backend, and therefore the price would be increasing as well. But long term, it proved to be unsustainable because they paused the bonds altogether. They, for some reason, stopped after having the sell-off. I think what happened was it was just too much for him. And Zeus admitted it. I think it was just too much for him. I think he should have continued. Like what I'm saying is, like, we are just restarting what he started with a much more developed infra through Ghost Chain, which he didn't have and they won't have. But he should have continued. And I think eventually he would have stumbled up to the same realization that he should have just created something to rent such liquidity. Scorpion is writing, that's an interesting perspective to see a bridge transaction as loaned liquidity. That's exactly right. You loan that liquidity, by the way, from the protocol. That's important. So that liquidity is loaned contingent upon POL is in place, 90%, 100% of that owned by the protocol. The protocol, therefore, owns the entire pair. And therefore, we have two different pools. We have a LP pool on the DEX, and we have a pool on the Ghost DAO itself. And there are two separate pools. However, if POL is 100%, and most of the composition of the treasury is LP tokens, we could say that that's actually the same pool. Those are different pools, but kind of the same pool. Because I know Sparta asked me if that's the same pool. He was under the impression it was the same pool, and I said no, it's not. But I came to realization a couple of weeks ago, it actually is the same pool. Like physically, it's different pools, but like de jure is different pools, but de facto it could be the same pool with those conditions that I just outlined. If you want to bridge from Web3 utopia to Web3 reality and reclaim your rights of privacy, financial autonomy, and ownership, join the Ghost ecosystem by visiting chain.ghostchain.io. You can find all the necessary links in the video description below.